Well, we've polished up our bullet collisions and added a nice little jump effect to our character. Now we're going to be adding some enemy stats so that our enemy doesn't die immediately when they take a hit. So we'll create a new scene here, and we'll give it just a custom node and just a base node, and we'll call this enemy stats, like that. We'll save this inside of enemies right here, and we'll give it a script. And our enemy stats, it's going to be a pretty simple script. All we need it to do is keep track of a health and a max health, and then emit a signal when the health has reached 0, basically saying the enemy has died. So we'll do signal enemy died, export int var max health. So this will allow them to set the max health. This is also a component, similar to how we set up a component for the hurt box and hitboxes. We're going to make our own little enemy stats component that we can just attach to enemies that we need. Then we'll do onReady var health equals max health set get set health. So we'll need a setter and a getter for this health. And the reason that we're using onReady var right here is because it needs to be an onReady var if it's going to use this exported variable right here. So it'll set it to 1 here if you just do var, but if you alter the max health inside of the editor right here, it won't update this health properly unless you use onReady var right here. And I just kind of discovered that through testing, but I wanted to make sure I explained why we were using onReady var there. So we'll set up our setter function here, health equals clamp value 0 max health. So we'll just clamp their health between the max health and then 0, of course. And then we'll say if health is equal to 0, emit signal enemy died. And that's it. That's all we need. Really, really simple little enemy stats component. So let's get rid of these here. We'll clear this. Now we can come into our enemy parent here, and we can attach this enemy stats right here. And this is where things get a little bit interesting. Our hurt box is signaling to the enemy when we take a hit, but we don't want to queue free here. We don't want to call queue free. What we want to do is subtract from our health. So we're going to get access to our stats. We'll say onReady var stats equals enemy stats, right? And then when we take a hit from our hurt box, we'll just say stats.health minus equals damage. Okay, so that's pretty easy. But then we want our enemies to die still when they run out of health. So we'll click on our enemy stats. We'll click on node, and we'll emit our enemy died signal to the enemy. So basically our stats is going to tell the enemy when we died. And inside of here, we'll call queue free. Right? So what happens? Our hurt box gets hit by a hitbox. That hitbox passes in damage here. And our hurt box signals to the enemy that we took a hit. The enemy then subtracts that damage from our health, from the health stats right here. Okay. Once again, signal up, call down. Then if our stats has gone below 0 or is equal to 0, then this also signals that we died back to the enemy up here, back up to the enemy, and then we call queue free when we've died. So if we come into our walking enemy now, and we click on the enemy stats right here. Come into the inspector. We can set the health to 3 to our walking enemy and save. And now it should take 3 hits to kill the walking enemies. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Works like a charm. So that's it. Now we've got we've come a long way in the last few lectures. We've got hurtbox and hitbox systems on our enemies with some nice little effects, and our enemies now have health as well they can use. However, you can see we're getting a few error messages here that are just warnings. Once again, warnings are not error messages. You don't technically have to do anything about them, but I like to try and keep them clean. So we're going to be the last thing we'll do in this lecture is clean these up. So the argument body is never used in the function. Yeah, we're never going to use that argument, so we'll just ignore it. And same with this one, we're not going to use area in here, so we can just ignore it. But we can't take out the variable, right? Because this is a built-in signal, so we can't remove that variable. Then we have max speed is never used. We don't use it inside of this function right here, but we use it inside of the walking enemy. So it's inherited, right? Walking enemy inherits the max speed and actually uses it right here. So we can't get rid of that. If we get rid of that, we'll have problems. And that's why I say to be careful about those. So both the max speed and the motion, we want to ignore both of those variables. So we'll just click on our thing and ignore them both. Hit signal is declared but never emitted. Once again, we're actually emitting this signal when a hitbox collides with this hurtbox, but you just don't see that here, so we're going to ignore it again. And then argument delta is never used in the function physics process. This again, can't get rid of it, but it has to be there, so we'll ignore it. And so we cleaned up our warnings. We shouldn't be getting any more warnings with this. And this is a good start towards having a little Metroidvania. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this lecture, and I'll see you all in the next one.